All right, guys. So we're going to try this again. Again, I apologize about that. It just sort of cut out on me. But we're going to go back through this again, and I'm going to go through the entire presentation. The audio should be working now. If there are any issues, let me know, but I'm monitoring it to make sure that everything stays where it needs to be. So I apologize about that. So again, I'm going to start from the beginning here. So what we're going to be talking about today is strength training for longevity. Keep in mind too, guys, that any live stream I do, I always archive them and post them to YouTube, so you can watch those as well if you do miss any of these live streams. So keep that in mind in advance. But I do want to mention that I do have a ongoing sale at the moment where I'm offering 60% off online fitness coaching. You can go to bponlinefitness.com to learn a little bit more about that. If you have questions, please feel free to leave a comment and let me know. But with all that being said, guys, let's go ahead and get into talking about today's topic. Again, I'm going to start from the beginning. So we didn't get too far, so it's not like we missed much there. So let's go ahead and go over some of the topics that we're going to be discussing today. The topics that we're going over are primarily going to focus on mainly when we're talking about strength training and aging. So the science behind strength training and aging is the first one we're going to talk about. We're going to go over beginner-friendly strength training routines, strength training myths busted, functional fitness for everyday activities, strength training for a long-term fitness plan. So that's all of what we're going to be going over today. So this is basically just an overview of the topics we're going to discuss, but the main point is talking about strength training as we age and some of the various benefits that come with that. So the science behind strength training and aging. So there's a few points that you need to keep in mind and to be aware of. So when it comes to, the loss of muscle mass, this gradually happens as we age. So this can begin as early as in your 30s with a 3 to 8% muscle mass loss per decade. So that's how much muscle mass, depending on your age, you could lose that much within each decade, and it starts in your 30s. Of course, this accelerates after age 60, leading to decreased strength and mobility. Bones become weaker and brittle, increasing fracture risk. There's also a reduced muscle mass that leads to a slower metabolism, affecting energy balance and weight management. Now, keep in mind, I know some of these points here are they sound sort of shocking in themselves, but there are ways that we can sort of counteract these things and to be able to not necessarily, we can't necessarily eliminate it because as we age, things do happen. Our bodies do, deteriorate as we age, and that's a natural process, of us being humans. However, we can still counteract that by making healthy choices, in advance. So putting strength training in your routine is going to help you just have an overall better lifestyle as you get older. And that's what I really want to sort of emphasize here is that even though we do, age, there are ways that we can better our lifestyle as we age. So just keep in mind that even though, when we're talking about all of this, it does sound it sort of gives you a sense of worry and fear. I wouldn't necessarily worry about that, because there are so many ways that we can, depending on your age, no matter what age, you could start anywhere. I think it's very important to, even if you're older, there's not really a time to not start. Starting at any time is going to help you anyways, even if you're, you know, maybe in your 60s or if you're in your 50s, 40s, no matter what time you start, it's still going to be beneficial as you get older. So keep that in mind that even though these things do happen, as far as aging, we can counteract these things and we can really build our strength no matter what. So there's many different strength training routines to keep in mind when it comes to sort of beginner friendly strength training routines. Again, we're sort of the reason I'm mentioning this is what I want to really sort of hone in on is the aspect of, anybody that's a beginner and sort of being aware that, you know, starting out as a beginner can happen at any stage, no matter your age. And that's what I want to keep in mind. So some of the routines can be total body strength. Usually when you're a beginner, usually you focus on a more total body routine, so that you get adjusted to a lot of the basic movements, get adjusted to a workout routine. When it comes to intermediate, it's usually balance and strength combo. So you're focusing a little bit more on the weightlifting side of things, as well as helping to increase your balance. Being able to be stable when you're performing workouts is very important. And I do want to say that balance can be beneficial at various stages too, but primarily in sort of the intermediate stage of a workout routine, it can be very beneficial. Strength and flexibility. So as we get into the advanced stage, of course, we're placing a lot of our emphasis on building strength and then having flexibility alongside to help with the muscles to be able to continue to perform any of our strength training workouts effectively and to be able to, help to reduce any muscle tension we may have, helping with, the delayed onset muscle soreness, anything of that sort. When you include flexibility in your strength training routine, that's going to be very beneficial. Now, I do want to address the comment that Wayne left here. And he said, for a muscle gain goal, does a 60-year-old have to work harder than a 30-year-old to counteract muscle mass loss? So for this, I would say no. And the reason why I say that is that you really, no matter your age, again, it's going to happen as far as the muscle mass loss, it is going to happen. Um, you know, Even though like with me, I'm 29. As I get older, when I'm getting into my 30s, and things of that nature, that muscle mass loss is going to happen. It's going to slowly happen for me as well. So, what I would say is to really sort of focus on what you are capable of doing. Focus on the strength training routine you're capable of doing. And I wouldn't say push yourself really hard. I think it's important to really focus on, you know, doing the routine that works for you. Again, you can still build that muscle. Muscle gain can still happen even if you're in your 60s. It just takes a little bit longer to get there. So there's that you have to put into account. So I wouldn't say work as hard as you are or as hard as somebody who's in their 30s because it's just that there's a complete difference there, if that makes sense. You just need to focus on what you're capable of doing and really focus on, again, having that strong routine, having a good balance with your nutrition, having a good strength training routine and things of that nature is going to really help. So I wouldn't say that you have to work that hard. As long as you're building a really healthy routine, I wouldn't say to worry too much about that as far as that's concerned. Really just focus on your own pace. I mean, to be honest too, if you're somebody who is in your 60s and you're doing strength training, you're really ahead of a lot of people. So that's another thing in and of itself. So you're going to have so much of a healthier lifestyle in that aspect as well. So because it's really rare with anybody in that age group that would, do any kind of strength training or anything of that sort. So again, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I would focus on what you can do, and just sort of know that you can gain muscle. It's not like it's impossible to gain muscle, but it just takes a little bit longer. I would just be patient with yourself when it comes to that. Don't, really try to rush it. That's my main thing when it comes to, you know, that, aspect of, getting older. Again, I hope that helped, Wayne. Again, just focus on what you're capable of doing. That's what's going to matter most. So, for the next point here that I do want to mention is sort of the different strength training myths that I want to go over. Again, this is all sort of connected. This, stream is very much geared towards people who are beginners. So keep that in mind as well. But I do want to talk about some of these different myths that you've likely heard. The first one we're going to touch on is strength training makes you bulky. The second myth is cardio is better cardio is better for weight loss. Myth three is lifting heavy is dangerous. So these are the 3 points that we're going to go over, and I'm going to do these in different slides to sort of explain these different points. So strength training makes you bulky, and this is the myth. Strength training does not necessarily make you bulky. So there's a few things you need to keep in mind. Building bulk requires intense training over years. This includes, of course, high calorie diets to, be able to gain that bulk as well. There's different specific genetic predispositions. So depending on your genetics, that can sometimes make a factor with, getting bulky or gaining muscle in different aspects. Typical strength training programs enhance muscle tone, not size. So when it comes to, and I know this is a lot of fear with certain people, when I've talked to as far as when I've done different consultation calls with potential clients that they worry about this sort of aspect of things. And you would have to, in order to really get really bulky, it would take a long time in order for that to actually happen. Um, but keep in mind that, you know, it's all about sort of building the routine, building that healthy routine is the main aspect of things. And you're not going to get bulky just by getting started with a normal, weightlifting routine. It's going to take time to actually see that sort of change. If you're really serious about, of course, gaining that bulk, then it will come quicker. But keep in mind that you can't really get bulky unless you're really into it really intensely for a long period of time. That's the only way that you would actually get there. And of course, you do have to have a high calorie diet and things of that nature as well. So cardio is better for weight loss. So this is another one that I hear myself, and this is something that I used to always sort of associate with weight loss was cardio before I became a trainer. But this is actually not the case when it comes to, you know, losing weight. So, and keep in mind too that it's not necessarily bad to include cardio. That's not what I'm mentioning here. It's that the myth is that cardio is better for weight loss than, say, talking about strength training or weightlifting. So, high calorie burn, cardio exercises like running, cycling, or swimming burn significant calories per session. So, that's the main thing that you're going to get from cardio is, burning calories, of course. Ease of entry, of course, cardio is simple and accessible, like walking and jogging, make it very beneficial for beginners who are on the go or a go-to for beginners, I should say. And it's going to lead to short-term results. It gives you a quick calorie deficit, leads to noticeable weight changes early on. So if you're doing a cardio routine, it's only you're not going to see long-term results. As far as if you're trying to really gain any sort of, muscle, or if you're trying to lose weight, it's only going to be in short bursts. So keep in mind that it's very beneficial, even if you're somebody who's focusing on weight loss, it can still be beneficial to have strength training because strength training in and of itself is going to help increase metabolism, I should say, because you're gaining more muscle. More muscle you have, of course, that's going to increase your metabolism in turn. So strength training can be very beneficial for somebody who's focusing on weight loss and having a good balance of cardio. Really, for somebody who is focusing on, weight loss, the main thing I would say is having a proper balance between both your strength training and cardio. It can be the same for muscle gain. However, with muscle gain, you would want to have a little bit less cardio and a little bit more, strength training and weightlifting in your routine. But with weight loss, it's really more of a balance between the two. So cardio is great. It's just not going to give you long-term results alone. You do have to have some form of strength training to add into your routine for it to be very long-term. So keep that in mind. So for myth three, lifting heavy weights is dangerous. So there's many things to keep in mind here. And when it comes to weightlifting, it's not really about lifting heavy. You don't have to lift heavy. It's more about how you're controlling the weight. That's the way that I always see, weightlifting. The aspect of controlling the weight. It's not all about lifting heavy. It's about having control of that weight and doing the proper form throughout, the duration of the workout you're performing. So what actually causes injuries when it comes to lifting heavy is poor technique, lifting with incorrect form or posture, overestimating your abilities, so using weights beyond personal capability without progression, skipping warm-ups, lack of proper preparation increases risk, and neglecting rest. This is overtraining, you know, we're talking about overtraining is, doing too much, weightlifting, working out too much is going to lead into overtraining, which is going to in turn be counterproductive to your results because you're not giving your body enough rest and recovery in order for it to gain muscle. So, again, when it comes to starting a routine, and if you're focusing on, you know, wanting to get into a strength training routine, you don't have to lift heavy weights. It's not about lifting heavy weights. It's about really gaining control over the weight, learning how to perform the workouts properly, focusing on slow and controlled movements, that's a big thing as well, and having the proper progression. When it comes to, lifting heavier, it's all about the progressive overload. It's about gradually increasing that weight as you go. That's the main aspect that you need to keep in mind. It's not about immediately going and lifting heavy weights. It's about mastering the weight that you're capable of lifting while still challenging yourself with progressive overload and gradually increasing the weights as you go. That's what it means to, prevent, injuries and, to counteract these different, myths is to be mindful of what you're doing. So just keep that in mind that it's not dangerous to lift. Of course, it can be dangerous if you're not paying attention, but it's all about having proper technique, really, knowing your capabilities, being able to warm up, get started for your routine, and to give your body enough rest where it can aid in that muscle repair and recovery. So, functional fitness for everyday activities. And again, I know this all seems, outside of the topic when we're talking about aging, but this is all interconnected. This, when we're talking about fitness myths, there's a lot of misconception with, various populations where, of course, they associate cardio with weight loss and things of that nature. They associate, lifting heavy weights as being dangerous. And that's why I'm touching on these because I do want to address these topics and they still connect to the overall, umbrella topic of longevity because it's important to be aware of these aspects of strength training because strength training is very approachable if sort of what it's all about, and that was the big thing with me before I started. I used to really just kind of avoid lifting weights for the longest time because I just didn't, there was just something about it. I was uncomfortable with it, I guess. And that's why I want to go over this is because of that. So, you know, don't see it as just for somebody who's wanting to be a bodybuilder. Strength training can be beneficial for everybody. And that's what I'm trying to get across here with this overall topic. So, the next point here is functional fitness for everyday activities. So, a lot of the exercises you see performed, with, whether it be using dumbbells, barbells, or any kind of strength training machine, there is actually a way that this can connect to your everyday life. So, for example, a farmer's carry workout is a workout they would use with dumbbells. You're basically just having the dumbbells by your side and you're walking with those dumbbells. Of course, that can be similar to carrying groceries. So climbing the stairs, if you're doing step ups, that is going to be, very similar to climbing the stairs. Getting up from a chair, squats is the same motion you do when you're getting up from a chair or when you're sitting down. Reaching high shelves, if you're doing an overhead press usually targets the shoulders. This is going to help with being able to, reach. Playing with kids, anything like lunging and twisting, if you're doing any kind of movement like that, this can not only be for, just playing with kids in general, but if you're doing maybe cleaning or anything of that sort, this can kind of be the same sort of aspect of how that can help with, functional, everyday activities. And that's what I'm trying to sort of compare and contrast these things because different things you do in your day-to-day life and, having exercises that mimic that is going to help you in performing other activities. And this again connects with the longevity aspect of things. So that's what I wanted to touch on is to really think about how the exercises you perform actually connect to your day-to-day life, not just, in a structured workout, but what you do day to day and any activities you do. So there's a connection there. And the more that you do specific workouts, that, any of these tasks that you do is going to help you perform those specific tasks better when you do that. So I do have a another comment here from Vincent. It said that he's pulled both of his calf muscles from working out. Any recovery suggestions? So when it comes to that aspect, when we're talking about, sort of recovery, what I would say is really focus on stretching that muscle. I wouldn't really work out that muscle. Of course, you don't want to strain it anymore. What I would focus on is if you have a foam roller, I would say use a foam roller. That can be very beneficial for, relieving any strain on that muscle. Another thing that you could do is you could also, of course, do any calf stretches. There's a ton of different stretches you can do of the lower body that can be, very beneficial. But there's a lot. I would really recommend the foam roller. If you don't have one, they're very inexpensive. You can get them for maybe $15 to $20, I want to say is how much they cost. They may be a little bit less than that, but those are very helpful. Again, basically the way that you use those is they're primarily used for stretching muscles. And when you roll over that particular muscle and you feel tension in that muscle, you basically hold the stretch or hold that tension basically in order to alleviate the stress on that muscle. So I would definitely recommend that. I like using foam rollers because they're very helpful, for relieving any sort of muscle strain or tension. So that's what I would recommend. If you do have any other questions about that, feel free to let me know. But that's what I would recommend when it comes to, if you're having issues or if you, maybe pull the muscle or anything of that sort. I would definitely not work that muscle out, of course. I would let that muscle rest. Give yourself time to rest before, going back into a workout until you're comfortable. But just keep that in mind. So if you have any questions on that, just let me know. So for strength training for a long-term fitness plan. So I've actually got this copied. So I'm sorry about that. So I actually had the same one for both of those slides. So I apologize about that. So I can give you an overall sort of guide on strength training for sort of long-term plan. Some of the things you need to keep in mind when it comes to strength training in the long term is that it's really important to have goals in place on what you want to accomplish. When it comes to accomplishing those goals, you really need to sit down and define those goals specifically that you're trying to accomplish. One thing you need to keep in mind too is that you need to consider your current life situation, consider where you're at, and really plan your workouts around that. When it comes to long term progress as well, it's important to focus on, again, starting with weights you're comfortable with lifting. Another thing too, I would say, is when you're getting started and, sort of getting adjusted to a weightlifting plan, I would say start with strength training machines. You'll likely see those at the gym. And a lot of those are very great for beginners because they have a limited range of motion. So basically, what that means is that with those types of workouts, you're not going to injure yourself as easily because you have there's more control with the strength training machines because they're locked into place. You're sitting in a particular machine, like for example, like if you're talking about like a leg press or you're talking about like the preacher curl machine, anything like that, those are going to be good for beginners because they're not going to, place a lot of strain on the muscles. And, you're not going to have to worry so much about form when you're doing those particular workouts. So continuing on with talking about long-term progress, another thing you need to keep in mind is that you need to really be patient, really focus on, not trying to rush the progress, really taking your time with your routine. And really, another thing too is accountability. For long-term progress, accountability is very important, having somebody there to guide you. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be a personal trainer. It can be, a friend, a family member, or somebody of that sort that can help you, and to help to give you motivation, to have them provide you accountability, like to reach out to you or, go to the gym with you. That can help too with, really continuing on with that, workout routine. So I know I missed that slide. I didn't completely finish that slide. I have so much stuff going on that sometimes I accidentally put two slides the same. So I apologize about that, but that's pretty much the overall, sort of summary of, having long-term progress when, trying to achieve your goals when it comes to strength training. So thank you guys for taking the time to check this live stream out. I apologize for some of the setbacks there as we started this, but I really appreciate it. Again, you can check out my website. It's bbonlinefitness.com. You can also contact me with my email and phone number provided here. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And again, guys, I really hope that you found this helpful and valuable. I do want to mention that I do have my 60% off discount for online fitness coaching available now. So if you are interested in that, feel free to reach out and contact me. But thank you guys for taking the time to watch this. I really hope that you found it helpful and valuable. And I will have another live stream coming up in the next Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'll have that event posted pretty soon. But thank you guys once again. And I'll see you guys next week in the next live stream. So thank you guys.